104.5 The Team. We are live on Radio Row thanks to our friends at Bud Light. And this is one of the guests that I look forward to seeing because though analytics is interesting me as a coaching aspect of football, I think it's definitely valuable when you're trying to pick football games and determine what's going to happen. Paul Bessire from PredictionMachine.com joins us. Paul, I mean, I'm looking at this package. Like, everybody's got, like, one sheet with them today.
Yeah.
And you've got, like, what is this, 20 pages?
I think it's like 12 pages, and I don't even know if there's much on there from, like, Lady Gaga and Coldplay and Beyonce, because, in all honesty, to play the game 50,000 times like we do at PredictionMachine.com takes a second, and it spits out all that information. To do all the other research I do for the Super Bowl to make sure that I give the people the information they need, that's what I spend my time on, and that's not even listed in what you're looking at.
So, all right, so 50,000
Yeah.
So you input all the data you have on each team.
Exactly.
And then it's simply, was it Madden? How do you
Well, so this is my 13th Super Bowl where I've done this. We're 10-2 against the spread beforehand, and that's not a sales line because I'm going to tell you the answer here in a second. Right. It just shows you how long I've been doing this. And when I started doing this, it took me a half an hour to simulate one game 50 times. So that basically was playing Madden. Now it takes less than a second to simulate a game an entire season 50,000 times and spit out all the information that I need when it comes to who's going to win, how often, what all the players are going to do. What we're doing is, and we do this for 7 different sports. You know, Super Bowl is our Super Bowl, but we do this for over 100,000 different events every year. And after we simulate on a play-by-play basis, all 22 players interacting, home field advantage, weather, injuries, whatever the case may be, we get our hands on it. This is the cleanest game though I've ever seen. No home field advantage, no weather issues, and no real injury concerns either in terms of the game.
So who do we have? So you run the simulations. Who's going to win, and then I guess who are our top performers going to be?
Exactly. And we can break down any of the prop bets or anything that you might want to, but
all of those.
23-20 is our predicted score. We like Carolina to win, but that's actually pretty close within the 6-point spread. 57% of the time we see Carolina win the game, but it is just a field goal game. Denver is the third best defense that I have ever seen in the Super Bowl era. In the last 50 years, this Denver Broncos team is that good. That just shows you how bad the offense and then how much of a mess the offense has been because they're not the clear favorite in this game. But Denver, number 1 against the pass, number 1 against the run, best pass rush by far. I think they're going to be able to contain Cam Newton. It's not a very good game for Cam Newton according to our numbers, but it ultimately is a Carolina win in a very close, low-scoring game.
I mean, I'm looking through here. You literally have what you believe the stats for each player will be. So who is your odds-on favorite to be the MVP?
I mean, it is still Cam, even though I don't love the numbers, and I like the under in terms of his props for both rushing yards and for passing yards, and I think he's more than 50% likely to throw an interception. He's still the most likely MVP because he's the quarterback of the winning team. But I think the guy that's the most critical, or the biggest dark horse MVP candidate, is C.J. Anderson, running back for Denver Broncos. He averaged 2.5 yards per carry for the first 6 weeks of the season. Since then, he has averaged 6 yards per carry. He's gone over his 13 carries or 66 yards that we currently see where the current prop bet line is on him in 3 consecutive games. And I think he's the third most likely player to get the MVP and definitely a dark horse to watch in this game.
Peyton's got 9 touchdowns and 17 picks this year. Is it going to be an ugly potential last game for him?
Okay, so in our projected box score that you guys are looking at, we actually have the Denver Broncos gaining more yards than the Carolina Panthers. So that was actually by far the most surprising thing to me because I figured even with as good as the Denver defense is, Carolina's offense is the best, at least in scoring offense in the league, and the Carolina defense is very good. But yardage-wise, Denver beats them. Carolina wins this game, that 23-20 score, because of the turnover battle, and that turnover battle is directly related to Peyton Manning. We have him throwing 22 of 37 for just over 220 yards and 2 interceptions on average, which means more often than not in those 50,000 simulations, he's throwing multiple interceptions. That's I think the difference in the game and keeping it close is the C.J. Anderson in that running game and Denver really slowing the game down and making this low scoring and ugly. But the difference straight up in terms of the win is that Peyton Manning has an ugly game.
Paul Bessire from PredictionMachine.com joining us. And Paul, I'm holding this packet of somewhere between 12 to 20 pages.
or 50 or whatever it is.
The stats, I mean, just stat after stat after stat. You have no notes in front of you. And you are ripping off these.
Over here. I got them sitting next to me.
Okay, they're in front of you. You're not looking at them. How do you keep all that information in there?
It's just what this is the 7th Super Bowl I've done this where I've been on Radio Row bouncing around. This also happens. I was here for 17 straight hours yesterday. So I've been doing this for a while and I've been looking at the numbers, but they tend to stick. I mean, I'm a guy I was a finance major but a huge sports fan growing up. The numbers always made sense to me. I like to think of things analytically. I realize it's a whole lot easier to predict sports actually than finance, especially because there's not nearly as many people doing it as I I am, but also players play to the back of their baseball card, and like that's kind of the analogy. Past performance is more indicative of future success in sports than anything else. Well, when that happens, and I know the numbers as well as I do, they tend to stick in my brain, and I'm just checking this. I don't have to check that out just to know what's going to happen.
So Paul DePodesta is a guy who we know from the Mets. Now he's working with the Cleveland Browns. Could you work in the front office?
I work with several NFL teams, actually. Okay. I help them set up their draft boards. And I've worked for, and you could probably predict who they're going to be because they're the more analytical teams, but I've worked for several MLB teams as well. So I've done that kind of Paul DePodesta thing, just not at that level. Not at the front office. Actually, that's my full-time gig. But I've worked for several teams, a couple NBA teams, a few college teams. What I do to help them is a combination of one of two things. Either help them set up their draft boards, translate stats from college stats to the pros, whether that's NBA or whether that's NFL, or help them in-game decision-making. What do you do on fourth down? What do you do in baseball in terms of bunting or intentional walks and that kind of stuff? What I'm looking at is a technology that allows me to make quick and smart and objective decisions. 10 years ago, we couldn't do what I'm currently doing. 50 years ago, we had no idea what any of this stuff meant. It's the fact that the data and the technology exist to help us to get to this point, and we can think about problems in a unique way that allows people like Paul DePodesta to succeed. I mean, I've consulted for multiple Fortune 500 companies, and yet it's all the same math as what I use to try to figure out who's going to win the Super Bowl.
All right, let's get serious.
Yeah.
Lady Gaga, she's going to go under.
When you said let's get serious, I knew where you were going. I just wanted to say under.
He's already ran simulations of this interview 50,000 times, and he knew.
80% of the time you were going Gaga next.
All right, well, 20% of the time, what's the odds on the coin not flipping at all?
At all, exactly. And it's the same guy. Exactly. It's Cleve Laker. So I'll give you the breakdown on the under for Lady Gaga. 220 is where the line is, which is just insane. Only one singer of the last decade has gone over 220 when it comes to the Super Bowl. It's Alicia Keys. She went 234. 157 is the average for a Super Bowl national anthem. 142 is actually the average for those same 49s, or 48, because there was a ban the first year. The 48 previous singers to this year that have sung the national anthem, 142 is their average when they don't sing in the Super Bowl, 157 in. So they usually go longer. Gaga went 218 just a couple years ago in New York City, but it was at a Pride rally where she changed all the words in the final two stanzas. She's got a contract with CBS. I'm sure she cleans it up, sings all the right words, and she'll keep it right around 210. And I love the under then on that prop.
Wow. All right. I mean, go ahead, Brady. I'm mesmerized by the data.
My favorite prop bet is the John Fox mentions. Yeah. I'm definitely going over. It looks like you are too.
Well, here's the thing, and the line's really weird because the line is 1, which means if he's mentioned at all, everybody gets and only one time, everybody gets their money back. So he's going to be mentioned, and this is exactly the way that I think this plays out. And I've worked with CBS. That's something that we've had and have a deal with. But yet I don't know Phil Simms and Jim Nantz. I just think this is what's going to happen. They're going to first talk about Gary Kubiak right off the bat. He's the first coach mentioned, which is a prop. They're going to talk about him. They're going to mention the fact that John Elway was his starting quarterback, or that Kubiak was the backup quarterback to John Elway. That's another prop. Then they'll bring in John Fox and talk about John Fox, which will connect the two teams. And then at that point, they'll reference Ron Rivera. At which point now we've had Kubiak as the first coach mentioned. John Fox is at least referenced once. The fact that Elway was the starting quarterback ahead of Kubiak is another prop bet. But I don't think we'll see Elway again after they talk about that. So I love the under on times that he's shown in that game.
Can I parlay all this?
Hey, you get good odds on it, yeah. I think it's going to happen.
Paul Bessire, how do I get this? Like, I've got my website open and everything, but how do I get this information?
PredictionMachine.com. Everything that we're talking about right now is actually totally for free. You go to the site, you get the box score, you get the projection, you see exactly how often we have the team winning, covering, and everything we expect every player to do. You don't get the Gaga stuff. You don't get the Coldplay or the Beyonce, because you got to talk to me to get that. But Beyonce, Other, which is not black, not gold, not silver shoes, and Coldplay, I love 15-2 on Clocks is the first song that they play at the halftime show.
Does it help you with the Coldplay information to know that we were in Mel's Diner the other day and they came in and ate dinner with us?
That's all. With you guys.
Well,
they showed up. They showed up
no, it's fine. We like to keep our friendship on the DL, so we made them sit a couple booths away.
So you asked them what they were singing first. You asked them for the set list, right?
No, I went, are you Coldplay? Oh my God!
I would have done the same thing. And then I would have tried to get information out of them.
Well, yeah. See, that's what you do. You get all the information. Paul Bessire, PredictionMachine.com. Paul, thanks for making some time for us. And can I keep this? Because I want to go on my website right now. Awesome.
Enjoyed it. Thanks, guys.